Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network Show. My name is Emma Vigeland. We are here on the ESVN Show channel, so if you're listening on a podcast platform, first, please rate us 5 stars, or just rate us. It doesn't have to be 5 stars. I mean, I'd prefer it, but if you want to give us a crap review, I'll take a look. But if you are also, actually, just don't. This is an authoritarian regime. Please don't. But if you are listening on a podcast platform, subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/ESVN show. Hello, Bradley.
Hello. Good afternoon.
And debuting your mustache.
It's back, baby.
I like it.
I was off camera giving Emma the under no circumstances do we allow less than 5-star reviews on our platform.
Yes, he was doing the and he went, cut that
shit out.
I will kill you.
Yeah, that's
right. What Bradley was doing off camera.
We're both levying death threats at each other these past few weeks.
This is the workplace environment that we foster here. Well, that was quite a Sunday. NFL's actually starting to get really interesting, and the cream is rising to the top, as it were. So that it's going to be a fun final few weeks. But I guess let's just dive right into it. There was some big news that broke over the weekend. Out of nowhere, Jacob deGrom leaving the New York Mets, and it was hinted at for a while. deGrom's not been healthy consistently for a few years. There were a lot of rumors about him going to the Atlanta Braves, which would have, even as a casual Mets fan, made me angry because I hate the Braves. And we would have had to see him.
Yeah.
And it's just, that would have sucked.
Zach Wheeler being on the Phillies and then deGrom being on the Braves would have been a real 1-2 twist of the knife. So having two former great Met pitchers be divisional rivals
it would have sucked. And so I guess this is a better scenario if he weren't to stay in New York, and just all indications are that the Mets just were uncomfortable giving him term, and he wanted term. And he deserves that. He deserves to take as much money as he wants, even if he's going to pitch on Mars, as my stepbrother characterized it to me. That's essentially where he'll be in terms of relevancy. In Texas on the Rangers. So,
well, the interesting thing to me about all of this is that on one hand, I think as a Mets fan, it's sentimental for me, I'll miss deGrom because he gave us so much in terms of his talent, his grace as a player and a person, and truly an amazing story, amazing player, seemingly a really good guy. But from a practicality standpoint, I understand what's going on here, and I'm not as upset about it as I could be, only because I'm thinking about it just in terms of the structure of the team and his health.
Mm-hmm.
He only started 6 games in the regular season this past season, and he has had chronic, health injuries. He's a little bit older as a starter. He got his start when he was the older pitcher. He wasn't a guy who was really starting to pitch at a high level at 21. He was starting to pitch at a high level at around 27, 28. And I think he's about 34, 35
now. Mid-30s now.
And
as the Mets have two ancient pitchers.
This is the thing is
in Scherzer and Verlander now.
They already have two kind of long. Now they have two they have two contractually obligated pitchers who are already pushing 40.
I shouldn't say ancient, but in sports terms,
for Verlander's 39 and Scherzer's 38. Pitchers I think can have some durability in that way. Pitchers are able to pitch into their 40s, but you don't get any younger, and your arm doesn't get any younger either. So, with all that being said, I just think the bottom line was, I think if both the Mets and deGrom really wanted to make it work, they would have. But I think at the end of the day, deGrom wanted long-term stability, and he wanted the contract he felt as if he deserved from a financial standpoint, and I can't knock him for that. In the sense that I think if it was only about deGrom thinking, I want to win a World Series, he would probably have decided to maybe look for either the 100-plus win team or a team like that, like the Braves or the Giants or someone, for example. But the Rangers, who frankly are they were a bad baseball team this past season. They have not been particularly relevant since the mid 2010s as a playoff team. But they can give him the most money and they can give him long-term stability. So I get it. And also,
no trade clause included, by the way, it seems like.
Right.
Full no trade clause and a conditional option. So it could be a 6-year deal,
right.
which was way more than anyone was going to offer him at this
absolutely.
point. And so, like, there were some really good nuggets in this ESPN article about deGrom's departure. Some of what I've touched on before, how yes, it is true that the Rangers gave him more money than anyone else was, plus more term. But what I found interesting here too was maybe a shift in the way that deGrom was relating to New York and to the locker room. This ESPN article has this to say. Throughout deGrom's career with the Mets, he was a respected teammate, especially for how he handled a chronic lack of run support. He would allow just a run or two, and the Mets would lose. And deGrom's message to reporters was consistent. His job was to outpitch his opponent that day, and he failed to do that. Like this, we are already kind of like went over that. But this shift is interesting. But to some in the clubhouse, he also became a little more distant from teammates over his years in the organization. He was a private person, which we all knew, doesn't have social media, that kind of thing. He was a private person who seemed to become a little more private. It was a perception likely exacerbated by that time away from the field. 391 days passed between his last start in 2021 to his first start in 2022. Some teammates like Francisco Lindor developed a relationship with Steve Cohen after Cohen bought the Mets in the fall of 2020, but friends felt that deGrom wasn't really interested in that. deGrom also had reduced his interactions with the large contingent of media that descends upon the Mets clubhouse, regularly speaking to reporters after his starts, but increasingly deflecting any other requests. Blah, blah, blah. He basically was moving away from his teammates, moving away from the media. He came up in the Mets when there was a different ownership structure, different owners. Francisco Lindor is the shiny new player for Steve Cohen.
And even
deGrom's
Scherzer was
injured.
less tenured than he was. Even Scherzer had come on after deGrom had as well.
So there's a confluence of things where he just, and also I want to say too, this private guy did not like the New York media. He did not like the scrutiny, which is fair. That's fair. But that's the case. He did not want to have to deal with this crap anymore.
And I think this is a choice that someone makes when, winning at all costs is not necessarily their top priority, and it's getting the long-term stability of someone with injury history who's a little bit further into their career and who wants the no trade clause, wants the multi-year contract, and wants the money, and to get even further into the nuts and bolts, wants to go to a state that doesn't have an income tax. That
too. I mean, Texas and Florida, that's a huge reason 100%. For a lot of guys.
And who's to say? And honestly, I think this does happen sometimes. We'll see how it plays out, but sometimes a player like this can create gravity for an organization that maybe I don't exactly know how much room financially the Rangers have to continue to spend after this, but I'm wondering if maybe at some point some players might be like, hey, it's going to be a top heavy rotation clearly from deGrom to the fifth starter on the Rangers, but maybe some more talent want to go play knowing that they have a guy who is he's a Cy Young candidate year in and year out.
I mean, apparently they're not done, so that could mean anything.
Right. I think teams always say that when they're in the hunt for big guys.
Yeah.
We're going to keep retooling or whatever. So we'll see how that goes, obviously. Long off season now until next March or next April.
But it seems like the Mets, look, I understand now their pitching rotation is going to be quite old, but still, you can't be that upset with Scherzer and Verlander.
And I'm really not, because at the end of the day, too, it's also a matter of context, right? In the sense that we've seen this happen, obviously, as we've been discussing this year. We've seen this happen with the older players where, you're Aaron Rodgers and you're 39 years old and you're not playing at the MVP caliber that you were the year and the year before. You're Tom Brady and you're not playing at the league leading statistical quarterback as you were the year before. But then you have LeBron James in year 20. He's LeBron James. Don't get me wrong. It's not, you can't really compare anyone to LeBron, but this is a guy. There are people who can continue to persist and continue to produce and continue to play at a high level despite their age. And Verlander is 39 years old, coming off of a Cy Young Award and coming off of a World Series championship. Bless you.
Thank you.
You should have blessed yourself like Quinnen Williams.
Bless you. Thank you. Go on.
But so in my mind, I'm encouraged by the fact that, I'm more encouraged knowing what level of talent Verlander brought the Astros this past season. And honestly, more than Scherzer, because Scherzer, I was more concerned. If anything, I'm a little bit more concerned about Scherzer's health and Scherzer's longevity.
He did not have a good playoffs, which is exactly what he was supposed to be.
Right. He didn't have a good postseason. It seemed like his oblique or an abdominal muscle was really bothering him like the whole time, seemingly affecting his command, whereas Verlander had no such problem. So, I think if Scherzer can get healthy, Verlander, Chris Bassett, Carlos Carrasco, Taijuan Walker, I mean, that's still a really solid rotation with two high-end guys at the top. And
the Mets were better offensively this year, so it's like probably just, in spurts. So maybe you're able to just kind of have a more consistent approach as opposed to to me, it's like sometimes I see it with the Rangers were terrible this year. I don't want to talk about it. But last year, the Rangers would do this where they'd play amazingly when Alexander Georgiev was in net. I'm talking about hockey now. The New York
non-Shesterkin goalie.
But the backup goalie for Igor Shesterkin, who's a top goaltender in the league. And then, it has to be a 2-1 game when Igor's in. And I felt that was kind of similar for you can play more conservatively or be on your back foot a little bit when you know that you have, deGrom and
when you have the guy who's almost certainly not going to give up any runs, you can kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit, and maybe this won't give them. Maybe that'll be a little bit more urgency without having that assurance, necessarily. So, but it's interesting. It's definitely already an interesting off season. Trea Turner just was signed away from the Dodgers to the Phillies. So good teams are still there's certain It's not every team clearly in the MLB, but good teams are still trying to be good, so trying to be competitive. So that's nice to see. But I'm hoping that it won't just extend to the teams that made the playoffs or in the World Series that are trying to compete for next year.
Let's touch on this Deion Sanders story because Deion Sanders in the news for not a good reason. I think for the most part, most people are having quite negative reactions to this announcement. Deion was really vocal about trying to elevate HBCUs. He was the head coach of Jackson State, went 27-5. He was 12-0 this season thus far, and
won the SWAC championship game.
Yeah, he was a huge part of why these 5-star recruits, kids out of high school, made a decision to go to Jackson State as opposed to Alabama or Georgia or Michigan, right? And his son is one of them. That's a whole nother wrinkle. But he's now decided that he's leaving. He is leaving Jackson State. He is going to Colorado to be the head coach.
Go Buffs.
And Colorado is not a good football program.
They were 1-11 this year.
1-11.
Yeah.
And there were other rumors about where he might go because, look, his salary at Jackson State was in the mid hundreds of thousands, and he was going to get offered millions to coach another school. Now, he's made a lot of money in his career, but he can make a decision for himself. And it seemed like most people understood that it was inevitable that he would end up leaving Jackson State after kind of promoting the program there and going to a bigger school. Florida State was mentioned as a place that he could go. That would make some sense. There were other schools, and now I'm blanking on it. But schools that, maybe had a little bit more of a black student body than, say, Colorado, which is a historically white university, very much so, and not even a good one. And that's what's shocking.
Yeah, their football team has not been particularly relevant since the mid '90s when Cordell Stewart was their quarterback, and with Mike McIntyre was their coach before he descended into reclusivity. He literally left college coaching to like just be a full-time kind of like evangelical Christian with his wife.
Okay.
So that was the last time he was ever they were ever really relevant, was like literally 25 years ago. And fun fact, Cordell Stewart, Portia from Real Housewife of Atlanta's ex-husband.
I'm not there in
Spoiler.
In
Atlanta.
I've been telling Bradley I've been watching Real Housewives of Atlanta. I'm only on season 4.
So that's a fun wrinkle.
It's amazing. I mean, Nene Leakes, she's a
icon.
Legend
of the Forum.
A star.
Legend of the Forum.
I love her forever. Anyway, we can do our Bravo podcast another time.
For the Patreon.
Yeah.
So this is really fascinating to me though, because it comes with so many like cross-cultural currents beyond just like a guy, which under any other circumstance, this is a relatively normal occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
An overperforming coach of a less heralded school and a less heralded conference gets a better job, goes to a school with more resources, with more talent, more access to the recruiting pool and the transfer portal, things like that. But the difference is, like you said, this is the Hall of Famer, like all-time athlete Deion Sanders, not only being a great coach, but also ostensibly trying to do this for a school and a conference, for historically black colleges and universities, almost in a way consciously making that, centering him, trying to elevate the conference, elevate these schools, and then basically
piecing
when the success comes, when the veneer of success comes, he immediately changes course, changes his tune, goes to a bigger program with more resources, and kind of begins to impose his will almost immediately just by virtue of his star power.
And he, of all of the coaches at HBCUs, could feasibly have the most principle to stand on. He's made a ton of money in his career, not just, as one of the greatest defensive players of all time in the history of the NFL, but through his broadcasting career and through endorsements. Like, he's not hurting. So he, in theory, could have been somebody who could stay at Jackson State, as opposed to, say, if there was another overperforming coach who did not have his acumen, who you could understand maybe getting poached and going to a different school. And the problem is with, his elevations of HBCUs and then this contradiction is that, unfortunately for HBCUs, it really was always about Deion. And he didn't do much systemically except to, yes, bring 5-star recruits into his program, encourage NIL deals, that kind of thing, got some donations for Jackson State. Yes, but that all was in his interests, right? What wouldn't have been in his interest, what would have been the principled thing to do, would be to stay, because he has the resources that other coaches at HBCUs do not. And why I did like what he was doing so much, one was because I want these college players to get paid. And he was essentially, even though it wasn't a good payment system going through NILs, still like fostering that, as opposed to Nick Saban or other coaches who clearly hate that it undercuts their own power of recruiting. But what is frustrating is that college football, more than maybe any other sports institution in the country, is so structured around systemic racism that this like alternate path of HBCUs was really, really important. And having him as a face of that push was instrumental, because, like, I've said this before, and not to use hyperbole, but sometimes these white college coaches act like they're managing, I don't want to go too far, but they are a very racist bunch, college football coaches.
Well, it's hard.
They
to
like
avoid
having power over black players. They like lording it over them. They don't pay them.
It's hard to avoid the comparisons of a very wealthy white person having a lot of power over either unpaid or underpaid black athletes.
And if they are getting paid, it's not from the college.
And usually, if they are, they get punished for it. Terrell Pryor or guys like that. Reggie Bush
got his Heisman taken away.
Heisman taken away for doing something that Dabo Swinney at Clemson wouldn't have been punished if he did the same thing.
No. It and also you're a kid, people are throwing money at you, and you're on top of the world. Of course you're going to accept favors or gifts or
sign an
cars,
autograph.
Or sign an autograph, exactly, as they profit off of you through ticket sales where you see none of it. And like, I think that profession attracts systemically racist people. I think it attracts racist white college head coaches who want to be the king of the castle. They want to be judge, jury, and executioner. They have the final say about your career because you're not getting paid. You have no bargaining power. If you want to go to the NFL, you've committed to this school unless you want to transfer, and it might not work for you to transfer if you're a lower level recruit. You might still have some money and scholarship associated with the program. Like, the head coach can determine the future of your career, and it's almost always white guys, Southern white guys at programs that have been historically exclusionary of black players. Then when it overtook the sport, have fought tooth and nail so those black players don't get paid, and like, Deion's just joining that system.
And I think what is important to note is as you're saying, is that what Deion Sanders is doing is not abnormal for the college coaching carousel, the way that college coaches build on their career.
Yeah.
But I think there was, because of how much he made his choice to coach at Jackson State about elevating HBCUs, trying to make HBCUs more of a talent pool for college football. I think if I'm a person who's in this SWAC, if I'm in that conference, if I'm one of his recruits to Jackson State, that while he's no longer there, unless he tries to poach all of them from
what he's doing
from Jackson State to Colorado,
which is also undercuts his I'm pro HBCU argument, because now he's going to take all the best players to go to Colorado with him,
which will then ultimately dilute the talent pool that he sought to build. I can understand how it just rings hollow, and like you said, is just a continuation and a perpetuation of the entrenched system that's already there. And maybe it's too much to put on one guy, but I think if it was going to be one person, it would be someone who was independent.
Well, he actively sought it out,
wealthy, and had star power attached to his name, and was willing to use A and B to help kickstart this infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, Eddie Robinson Jr., who was the coach of Alabama State, he's a former player. He played against Sanders in the 90s. They had a bit of an altercation. It wasn't really an altercation. It's just he felt that, Sanders was not being particularly respectful of him and his team. They'd played together. He thought he would just kind of have a little bit more there's a lot of decorum shit about when you're coaches. It's like, don't walk around my team while we're practicing. Like don't keep running plays when there's 40 seconds left and we have no timeouts and you're beating us by 2 touchdowns. Like all this stupid unwritten rule crap. Like with all that being said, Sanders tried to give him a handshake and a hug afterwards, and Robinson kind of pushed away and walked away. And when he was asked about it after the game, he was basically just like, I've been here I've been in SWAC or around it my whole career, and he just parachutes in and says he's SWAC, he represents this conference, and he doesn't.
Yeah,
he doesn't represent us. I don't attach myself to that, and we're not friends, so I'm not going to act like we're friends. And I understand that some people at that time, Jackson State was way more talented than Alabama State at that time. I understand people thought he was being a bit of a sore loser and kind of being a little bitter about maybe Sanders' success and everything like that. But at the same time, he wasn't completely wrong.
No, and look, it was good what Deion was doing. I mean, even if it's incredibly self-serving, it is helpful to have HBCUs elevated. But you can see when someone is not committed to something systemically, when they leave, it's just like, all right, peace.
And we'll see what happens in the sense that will Jackson State with another coach be able to continue attracting top-level talent without Deion Sanders?
Doubtful.
Will all of these recruits at Jackson State, as we just said, enter the transfer portal and join him in Colorado instead? And then what happens to the record of that school? What happens to the resources for that school? What does Deion Sanders leaving mean for that conference and mean for that school in particular? I'm just curious to see what the literal pure cause and effect of this transaction, this decision does when the next college season rolls around.
Yeah, it just, I mean, this is why this whole system needs to die. Like, in the sense that, college athletes, like college football and college sports, need to be a separate money-making entity with ironclad protections for their workers to get actually paid. We're taking a step towards that with the college football playoffs being more untethered from the NCAA, but it needs to be basically severed, in my opinion, because the system of exploitation of these student athletes when they're essentially semi-professionals already is it needs to die, and I want to kill it as soon as possible, especially because it's so inherently intertwined with, frankly, racist views of what Black people are supposed to provide for people through their own labor. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the NFL then.
All right. Let's do it.
So, I guess we should just start with the Bengals, because for me, the Bengals are playing such a sound and balanced style of football right now. That was an impressive win over the Kansas City Chiefs. The second half defense for the Cincinnati Bengals, they come out in the second half when they make adjustments at halftime and they just lock people down. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know that they're impressive. In the second half of that game, they forced a fumble from Travis Kelce.
Which was like, I couldn't believe that play. I was like, oh my
God. I know. I mean, he's so automatic and that connection is so otherworldly. Like, I was listening to Kelce and Mahomes on Jason Kelce's podcast, and they're like best friends and just they have such a great rapport. And I know people don't like the Chiefs because they win so much. I love Kelce and Mahomes and the whole vibe of that team. So I like both of these teams a lot, frankly. But we're seeing like these two guys are Josh Allen. I think Burrow, Josh Allen, and Mahomes are in a league of their own right now because Lamar's been not playing as well, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But Jamar Chase returned to this game. What's so underrated about his play, and honestly, with him and Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, are clearly the best two receivers in the game. They're both so physical in the way that they play, which I think gets really underrated. Justin Jefferson can get slammed to the ground and he holds onto the football. Jamar Chase makes people like not just miss tackles, but also wrenches his body out of tackles every single game. And another element that was so exciting on offense was Burrow's running and scrambling,
and the design runs for him, which I thought were great. And this team,
they knew they had to pull out all the stops to beat the Chiefs, but this and just quickly, my point about the Chiefs is this was the first game where I was like, okay, this receiver room is not good enough without Tyreek Hill, and I think it's really showing because the Bengals defense is top 5 right now.
They just, I think, really know how to game plan and kind of like counter the Chiefs and kind of play the chess match with the Chiefs really well. And I obviously, ESVN All-Star Lou Anarumo. Every week I'm just so dazzled by his ability to just like coach up this group that's obviously very good and very well and very like a seamless unit, but not a lot of top line talent all around. Chidobe Awuzie is not fully healthy, so it's not even as if they're at full strength either. But what I thought was very interesting about the entire matchup was you were just seeing kind of both teams trying to figure each other out and trying to like counter. I mean, there were 2 or 3 punts in this game. Like they were just trading punches for like 4 quarters, and it just so happens that credit to the Bengals with everything that they put into this team to be different from what they were before, even what they were from weeks 1 through 5, you saw the line step up. You saw the offensive line playing way better than they were in the first half of the season.
And Zach Taylor, good job. Like, I mean, he's out of the doghouse for me. I mean, Brandon Staley remains firmly in it.
Yeah, he's in the
still
well.
on the hate
We're
list.
throwing him down a well.
But continue, sorry.
But I'm saying, in terms of so the line plays one thing. The design runs for Burrow is another. Burrow's smart enough to smart enough and light enough on his feet to make those plays. You don't always and also the screen game, the screen pass game, the flat game with Samaje Perine with Mixon out. They were able to really utilize him not only as a pass catcher but as a blocker for Burrow with those design runs, and leaving out the plays from behind center in favor of a basically shotgun only offense has totally revitalized.
Oh my God.
Team. It's wild. They just stopped doing that, and they stopped doing that probably week 5, and they've been one of the 3 best offenses in the league. And Jamar Chase is back now.
I know, and they know that's exactly your point about them being in shotgun as opposed to being in under center. It has changed their offense
for sure.
It has changed their offense because you're putting your team in the hands of your best player, and Burrow is I mean,
you're
what else can we say?
You're maximizing his strengths. You're maximizing how quickly he's able to read what's in front of him, how quickly he's able to maximize the plays and the players and the personnel that are in front of him. And also, he can, like I was saying, even if it's designed or not, if he has to use his feet and rush, and if he has to scramble, he can do it. So it's more, like you said, it's just much more. It's indicative of putting much more trust into Burrow, the quarterback, as opposed to being we need to play it safe. We need to be under center just to make sure everything is in order, when it's not helping him. It's not helping him to have less space to operate.
They're running the offense so much through him at this point where they're the short passing game is it's acting as the way Derrick Henry did for the Titans 100%. 2 years ago, where it's
and they're
3 yards,
chunk plays
4 yards, 9 yards.
It's like death by 1,000 cuts, basically.
And it's Burrow just dissecting behind the line of scrimmage.
Right.
And to a different degree, they've decided that they're going to make the offense about Joe Burrow in the way that the offense is about Josh Allen and about Patrick Mahomes. But it's less about Burrow's physical arm strength. It's about his mind. And
oh yeah, 100%. He's a genius out there.
He's Peyton Manning-esque, the way he can see these. I mean, that's who he reminds me of. Except his footwork is just the fact he's a better athlete. Of course, all these quarterbacks are, unless you're Tom Brady still hanging out there. But this is what you have to be in the modern NFL. And Burrow is a good enough athlete. His feet are really, really strong. His footwork is really strong. His mind is right. And what is different about the Chiefs and the Bills and the way they run their offense through their quarterback is that the Bengals have more talent than the Bills, certainly. But right now, in terms of weapons, they do have more talent than the Chiefs. And that's what makes them scary, because their defense is playing better than, 85% of the defenses in the NFL right now.
And the fascinating thing too is that it's not even as if the Chiefs played that poorly. In the sense that they were neck and neck with them until the very end. But what if MVS doesn't drop 2 balls? What if Kelsey doesn't fumble? It's really, especially when a team is matching you like this, you kind of have to play mistake-free football. And there were just a few mistakes by the Chiefs that with the Bengals just playing consistently and playing their game, they were able to beat them. And I just wanted to highlight, to your point, one of the I think the perfect summations of the combination of Burrow's skills and the personnel he has available to him. The final play to clinch it for them, the first down throw on an in-breaker from Burrow to T. Higgins. I mean, that is a hard, high level of difficulty throw. To throw that, he's blanketed by the corner linebackers covering him. The trust that Higgins can hold on to that ball, the positioning of where Higgins caught that ball, and then Higgins using his length and his strength to come down with it to seal the game. When I see a play like that, I'm like, this team is back, and this team is ready to compete going further into the month and into next year as well.
And well, in January, this is what's amazing about them, and what perhaps we just were slow to catch up on when they, had that miracle run to the Super Bowl last year, which is that they just have the number of the Chiefs. I mean,
it's crazy that Burrow's never lost to Mahomes.
And the Titans, two teams that have been at the top of the AFC standings for the past few years that you have to get past. And they're undefeated with this Burrow regime, I believe, or at least they're 2-0 against the Titans, 3-0 against the Chiefs. 3-0 against the
Chiefs, yeah. 3-0
which
against
is,
the Chiefs.
No one does that. No one does
crazy.
that.
It's like it's such a rarity for a team to have, with Mahomes and Reed at the helm, a positive winning percentage against, let alone an undefeated record against them.
I really, really want them to win the Super Bowl. I want them or the Bills to win the Super Bowl. This is what I want. I really, really want it to be one of those AFC teams. Please don't let it be Philadelphia. The Vikings also don't deserve it. I'm sorry. I like them a lot, but they did. If they did win, I'd be happy about it too. But I just don't think they have the team. The AFC. We're back to the AFC's in a different class than the NFC at this point.
I remember us talking and after the Super Bowl that the concern could be that Burrow's a guy like Rivers, for example, or a guy in the sense that he makes the Super Bowl, makes a deep playoff run really early in his career, and then just unfortunately, circumstances and a high talent level and the competitive pool in the AFC makes it so that you can't get back.
And a cheap owner that's
not
going
to invest to maximize your chances and things like that. But who's to say? I mean, this team looks not only as good as it did last year, they're employing tools that they weren't last year, and I think that's the most important part. The line actually looks better. These schemes are actually better. The plan looks different, and I think that's really important. And they're still winning the games that they have to win. They're not only looking the part, they're also playing the part better than I think they were last year. But it's an interesting discussion because, frankly, The Vikings played a great game on Sunday. They outlasted the Jets even with a little bit of a comeback at the end. The defense held up and the offense looked really. I mean, Justin Jefferson was just hard to, basically impossible to cover. Kind of was able to abuse any sort of man coverage that he was receiving on that end. And the run game looked great. They got touchdowns out of Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. They were switching it up there, and then. So I'm seeing them more and more as less of an easy out. I just, in my view, at this point in the season, I think the Cowboys and the Eagles are might be a harder team to. If I'm the Vikings, I would be nervous about either of those matchups only because the Eagles are firing.
The Cowboys destroyed the Vikings. 40-3.
Right, the Cowboys, and in terms of just head to head, you look at that, what's going to happen if they have to play each other in the either in the wild card or the first or second round of the playoffs. The Cowboys' offense looks unstoppable right now. I mean, I know it's the Colts, but the Colts' defense aren't fully slouches, and they hung 54 points on them. When you're a great team, you beat the shit out of bad teams. And that's what they did. And the Eagles looked similarly unstoppable against a good Titans defense. They hung 35 points on them.
Well, I want to get into that in a little bit, right? Do you want to? I mean, I think we've kind of covered this here, right? With the Bengals.
Oh yeah,
we're good.
I was just more interested now that we've talked about that being who are the actual?
Oh, you're working it out.
Now that we're getting to the point where it's really we're gonna see the playoff picture just get more and more clear. I'm just curious who are I'm just thinking about who I think are really the deadliest or the most intimidating teams.
Let's run through it. Run through it. Okay, so in the NFC, there are, in my opinion, 4 legit teams. Let's include the Vikings to be generous. There's the Eagles. There's the
Cowboys.
There's the 49ers. I still can't write them off, even with Jimmy G out. Because maybe they'll sign Baker Mayfield. Who knows?
Well, they just signed all
Josh Johnson.
They signed backup quarterback extraordinaire. Josh Johnson, who is 30...
But it's like, I mean, does it even matter who they have at quarterback? It's just that the offense is a machine, and they have the most talent in the NFC besides the Eagles.
Josh Johnson is 37 years old. He has played for 14 teams, and he's played for the 49ers 3 separate times.
He's not going to see the light of he's not going to see grass. He's not going to touch grass. He's not going to be on the field. But then the Vikings, I guess, right? In the NFC.
I agree.
But then in the AFC, Bills, Chiefs, Bengals. Maybe that's it.
I would just say I would say in terms of like fully, like, I'm intimidated by seeing that team in the playoffs. Like, I would say those 3 because I'm thinking of who else. Like, the Jets and Patriots have clear weaknesses.
Miami, maybe.
The Chargers have clear weaknesses.
Fuck the Chargers. We'll talk about that later. I hate them.
Maybe the Dolphins, but I'm more concerned primarily about the offense than the defense, not the entire team. I'm mostly focused on or more concerned about the offense. I would say maybe the Dolphins are the other one, just in terms of like pure like offense on offense, like firepower match.
Yeah, it just depends on if it's outdoors,
right?
In my opinion,
if Miami's playing in Buffalo, for example, you know, in the winter, like we'll see how that affects them, that type of thing. And then the other team I would be thinking of the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens again, clear weaknesses, clearly not. They were. I would be less. I'm not that confident seeing them in the postseason just because of how banged up they are and how unconvincing I think the defense is.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about that a little bit more. I'm like annoyed about the Chargers now. This is what the point I wanted to make that I forgot earlier when you said that you were concerned Burrow could be like Phillip Rivers. Justin Herbert's going to be like Phillip Rivers.
Right. Just the heir to his
misfortune. I hope he forces his way to free agency. I really do. All right, actually, let's just talk about the Chargers.
Yeah,
we're right here.
I love talking about the Chargers.
What the hell is wrong with this team?
I mean, they need to fire.
What the hell is wrong with this team?
They need to fire. They need to fire Joe Lombardi like yesterday. He's one of the. I think he's one of the worst offensive coordinators in the league.
Horrible. I'm a Giants fan. I should not be getting this passionate about this, but I like Justin Herbert, and I see things in like my mentions. I tweeted something about how the Chargers.
Sean Payton they should go after Sean Payton.
Yes, if the Chargers weren't so cheap, they should go after Sean Payton. Construct an offense around the best player on your team, who is, and I know you have Joey Bosa, and I know you have Derwin James. It's still Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is, I mean, I think he's top 5. I know he hasn't played as well this year, but the problem is not Justin Herbert. You still see the
flashes. You still see the flashes there. You still see the arm talent. You see what he can do.
He has a top 3 arm in the league.
And you see what he can do with even a pretty depleted and a pretty inconsistent receiving core when he's not being tasked with just throwing checkdowns to Austin Eckler or Gerald Everett. Like
every throw he makes, it has to be in the tightest window possible.
Right.
They do not scheme guys to get separation. The Giants, I mean, I watch the Giants every week, and I'm way more impressed with how they get Isaiah Hodgins, a 6th-round player that the Giants got from the Bills in season, open more than Mike Williams or Keenan Allen.
He had a touchdown this week.
Oh yeah, he did. and the Chargers are just like, all right, run, run and out, run and in cut. But we're not really going to get creative.
Catch the ball in the end zone on double coverage.
Not a ton of motion, but just throw it in there. A dart. That was a dart to Keenan Allen. And that
it was a beautiful throw. It was unbelievable, but it was also like he was barely open. He was on the boundary. Like he was about to go out of bounds. Like it was
but Justin Herbert,
extremely high level of difficulty.
He can get it in there. Yes. He can get it in there.
Yes.
And then people go, oh, well, he's not a winner. He's not a winner. He's not taking his team to other levels. He has such little support on that team.
What if he had Jalen Hurts' team? What if he had Tua's team?
Yeah. And Brandon Staley just does not understand how clearly to work with offensive players. It's just, right. they either need a new offensive coordinator, but I don't even think that should be the case. I think you should be creating your offense around Justin Herbert. Sean Payton, I know he wants to go to a warm weather area. So
LA's pretty warm.
Could be a good market for him. That would be nice. I mean, I just really want to start that campaign, but the problem is just like, will they pay? I don't think so.
And think about it. We know what's fascinating. I think about even the Peyton sweepstakes, which of course is totally speculative, but you know, we were, the jokes were flying after Peyton left and said he was going to take a year off, and especially Dak gets injured. They're looking like crap in week one. Cooper Rush is coming in for a 5-game stint. Everyone's like, you know what? It's probably faded. Mike McCarthy out, Sean Payton in, and then 9-3 later, the Cowboys are one of the best offenses in the league. Have two of the best defensive players in the league by metrics, and that's probably not going to be an option for Sean Payton. So
thank God. I'm so happy that Mike McCarthy is overperforming.
Exactly. Until the playoffs. Then maybe Jerry Jones still will be like, you know what? I don't care if he went 14-3 in the season.
Yeah.
I'm still firing his ass. But as of now, I think it's probably not super justifiable. I don't know if necessarily he would want to go back to New Orleans again. And if the Cowboys is not an option,
he's not going to.
I don't know. Would he rather take the Cardinals team with Kyler Murray, which I think the vibes are off, and he seems like a genuinely difficult person to work with based on his relationship with Cliff Kingsbury. And I just think I would love to see a quarterback first, offense first coach like Sean Payton, somebody like that with Herbert, who was basically still like a ball of clay.
Right. Okay. So the Niners Dolphins game was an interesting one. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo is out for the year, which stinks because he was playing at a really high level. That was hold on. That was a devastating injury for them because all they needed was a stabilizing force of somebody who actually knows the system and is able to work Kyle Shanahan's offense. And Jimmy G was doing that better than he's done that for I don't know. He's like was an above average year for him, but that was the first loss of the year for Tua, and I guess like he almost played all the way through. He was taken out when the game was a little bit like out of reach for him, and he had an injury, but he should be fine. The other game that they lost that he started was the one where he had that horrific concussion against the Cincinnati Bengals. But I'm curious what your take was on it, Bradley, because in theory, at least on offense, the Dolphins certainly have the firepower to keep up with the San Francisco 49ers. The problem is just like the Niners have the speed to keep up on defense. They're probably the worst matchup that the Dolphins could possibly face that isn't like an outdoor game in a cold area. They're probably the best defense in the NFL right now. And Shanahan has an in on Mike McDaniel's system, and in my opinion, when the system fails Tua cannot elevate the team ahead of beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, the first drive was pretty great for the Dolphins. I mean, it was a wild play call and designed for like a 75-yard touchdown pass to Trent Sherfield. But then after that, I think it was maybe there was a little bit of a leveling out. Both teams were sort of kind of sizing each other up properly and kind of like making adjustments and things like that. But like you said, I think the 49ers linebacking core, which is like basically regardless of who is in the rotation, who's suiting up, they're just the aggressiveness, the speed, the tenacity, the tackling ability, their coverage abilities. Like, you're not gonna, if there's anyone that's gonna be able to neutralize threats like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, it's guys like Fred Warner, who's like the best linebacker in the league. Like, a guy who can just key off and just read things 10 steps ahead of everybody else. And
Nick Bosa was back. He was making plays all over the field.
He causing that fumble on that's basically that strip sack fumble type thing that happened at the end of the game to seal it. I mean, he's so bendy, he's so fast, he's so strong. He's such a wild confluence of traits for an edge rusher just to be able to do what he's able to do.
And good against the run, but that whole line was very effective at keeping their run game.
The run game was basically neutralized for Mostert and Jeff Wilson couldn't really get anything going on the ground.
Yeah.
So this was definitely a team that I think is maximized to take advantage of teams that don't prioritize speed on defense, meeting kind of like a speed on speed like assault basically.
Yeah.
And
I will say too, I feel a little bit like I'm having deja vu sometimes in my conversations about the Dolphins when I'm having what it reminds me of conversations about Jimmy G in the past. Like Jimmy G was playing well this year. Tua's playing very well this year. Do I think either of them are franchise quarterbacks? No, I don't think that. And like Jimmy in that year when they were having so much success and they looked unstoppable, we were having it was a very similar vibe in my opinion, and the way people were talking about the play of each of these guys. The point is just that the Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan are special. And this kind of system works really well to certain kinds of players' strengths. And McDaniel, I just, he's impossible not to love. Like, you see him on the sidelines saying, I fucked up, talking to Tua. He's so pro player. He's so fun. But I mean, it just, this new brand of coaches, they understand, like, how to get the most out of their players and construct offenses around them. I just think to get to a final level to win a Super Bowl, for the most part, you've had elite quarterback play over the past 10 years.
And I think an interesting thing about, I think there's this quote that's gone around. I think it was from the Athletic or an interview or a post game interview or press conference with McDaniel, was him basically saying he was me and Kyle, me and Kyle Shanahan and other people from like a few other people from the Niners coaching tree, not obviously D'Amico Ryans, but he said, I never played professional football. I never played pro football in any capacity, and neither did Kyle. So it's not these players' jobs for me to prove themselves to me. Part of my job is also proving myself to them, because they're the ones out there. They're the ones out there playing. They're the ones out there competing. I'm the ones that are trying to maximize their ability to compete. And I think it's a really, like, it seems kind of intuitive, but I think given how sometimes there's such a hard ass disposition in coaching and how much that kind of seeps into coaching, especially at in professional football, and how that's sometimes valorized about just kind of like how hard you can be on players.
Right. Right.
This is a bit of a different approach to acknowledge that, you have to earn the respect of the people in the locker room. So not only that they can play better, that they also want to play better for you. I mean, you don't see Mike McDaniel like screaming at Tua and he's a partner in the creation of the offense, if that makes sense. They're all like working. There is a hierarchy, of course, but it's much more of a collective effort in the construction of the offense, and that's just very different from the Bill Parcells model of shut the hell up and Bill Belichick, do your job. This is military style. I mean, you can have a blend, but McDaniel is, I think, leading the charge in a very different approach, and I appreciate that about him a lot. Oh yeah, he's been very impressive this season, and I think
he's great.
And if anyone's gonna maximize that roster, he's doing it the exact way that someone like Adam Gase or someone like Brian Flores just was not capable of doing.
Yeah, and I like Brian Flores, but.
Makes sense that he's a coordinator. Makes sense that he's on the defensive side doing what he does best. He was what made the Dolphins defense last season overperform while the offense underperformed. It's kind of the opposite way now.
Yes, exactly. But I do think that the Dolphins defense could hit another gear maybe once Bradley Chubb gets a little bit more integrated, but I have been disappointed by that side of the ball for them.
Because they have a few good pieces in the sense, Emmanuel Ogba's a good pass rusher. I mean, with adding Chubb there, and hopefully he, like you said, he can become a little bit more of a dominant force on the line and in coverage as well, given the fact that they did spend draft capital on him to have him kind of shore up the defense. But I honestly think it's one of those things where if this offense can stay dominant and they can get mostly league average or pretty good defensive play on the other end, I can see them being pretty formidable in the playoffs. But I think I would just still, because I'm less certain about the defense, where I feel a little bit better about. By a little bit, I mean in the sense that the Bills' defense is beat up, but I still trust their process more.
Yeah.
And Jordan Poyer's back, and he's kind of like the stalwart in that defense. I trust the Bengals defense certainly more, and I think the Chiefs. That's the Chiefs' formula basically is have an offense with huge amounts of firepower and just stay up with a few stars on the defensive end and just make sure things are relatively sound to keep them in games.
I know they're trying to do that, but I think Xavier Howard's really good.
Oh, for sure.
I know that like some of the metrics haven't been that kind to him, but they need to be like doing what the Chiefs did in terms of maximizing their few stars on defense with Xavier Howard and now Bradley Chubb. And Jalen Phillips really good. I don't know what his status is right now, but
he's shown some flashes, as an early first round guy from last year's draft.
I'd buy his stock. His stock. He's a freak athlete.
But I see what you mean in the sense of I would almost think it would be helpful, and obviously I'm talking about a former iteration of the Chiefs, but I mean in the sense of, for example, having the Mahomes-Hill offense, while then on the defensive side trying to maintain everything, keep things sound, but maximize Chris Jones, maximize Tyrann Mathieu,
right?
Maximize guys like that, maximize who now Justin Reed's been playing.
Frank Clark
well.
at that time.
Yeah, Frank Clark, exactly. Like the guys knowing the stars you have, make them kind of the focal points while you have this super 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 dynamic offense.
So we also should say Baker Mayfield has been released.
Yeah.
By the Carolina Panthers just after
tough business.
Them. I mean, first of all, Baker Mayfield should have stayed in Cleveland throughout this year. He would have known the system. He would have been able to say, I'm a team guy and like, suck it up, guys. I'm going to play. I'm going to be here. If you want to trade for Deshaun Watson and deal with that whole fiasco, that's fine. I'm going to stay here. And I'm going to make my case for free agency next year. Instead, he got traded late, didn't really know the system in Carolina, and it was probably, besides Houston itself, might have been the worst situation that he possibly could have been in. So
100%.
He's really hurt his stock. But there is one team, and there's no trade deadline at this point. That's passed. Or we've passed the trade deadline. There's no ability to make a trade, but there's one team that's very much in need of a quarterback, and it's a good one. And that's the San Francisco 49ers. It makes way too much sense.
Yeah, because I guess my thing is with this defense playing the way that they're still playing, with still having, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, like,
they're stacked.
Do you want to go into a potential playoff run with Brock Purdy, your rookie backup, who was drafted with the last pick in this past year's draft? Which a knock on him. He played serviceably and okay for someone who I don't think was expecting to play, and on Sunday. Or Josh Johnson, who was just a career backup and an older career backup for that matter. I mean, he's 37 years old. He's been in the league. He's been in and out of the league, professional football since like 2009, 2010. I don't think Baker Mayfield has been blowing the doors off anybody for some time now. But I think I'd probably just take a larger chance on him, on a guy like him in a Shanahan scheme to just kind of be essentially a placeholder or a game manager over those two guys. It just seems like a bit of a more known quantity than that of Brock Purdy or Josh Johnson going into the playoffs.
Yeah, that's the thing is one, it's a very complicated system. So Baker would probably not play for a long while he was getting to know it.
Right.
Two, he's not exactly what Kyle Shanahan looks for in a quarterback.
That's true.
Kyle Shanahan wanted Kirk Cousins in San Francisco, and they were unable to match Minnesota's contract for him because Kyle Shanahan wants a quarterback who's essentially going to be an extension of the coaching staff on the field, one who can execute the offense and who knows what to do and what decisions to make, and they make them even if it's not spectacular. I think it's actually a philosophy that held the 49ers back to a degree. It's part of why maybe they didn't draft Patrick Mahomes or some of the other quarterbacks that have passed them in before. However, it's probably one of the only negative things I can say about Kyle Shanahan. So if you're a 49er fan, you definitely take the good. Baker's a bit of a gunslinger. He's maybe not someone who can be trusted in that system.
Yeah.
However, if you have a conversation with him, you feel like you can mold him to be that kind of guy. It's like, I mean, the Cam Newton experiment failed in New England, but people thought that guy would never fit there. And, they tried it. That could happen in San Francisco, or in Levi Stadium, 40 miles outside of San Francisco.
Yeah, what's it called?
It used to be Candlestick Park. Now it's Levi Stadium. I don't
know.
No,
I'm saying that. Yeah, the town. I forgot what the town is. It's like some random town outside of San Francisco.
Yeah. So that could be interesting. That could be very interesting. And to me, the timing seems quite.
Santa Clara. Sorry, it's Santa Clara.
Santa Clara.
I was curious.
The timing seems quite fortuitous for Baker Mayfield for him to get released from the Panthers. It's just he really did play that wrong. I know he couldn't stand to be in the Browns locker room anymore, and I know they kept saying we want an adult at quarterback, and then they traded for Deshaun Watson, who had dozens of cases against him and who played yesterday. Yes, we can talk about that as well. But so I understand feeling peeved, although I will say that up till that point, I found Baker Mayfield's behavior to be quite immature. And I also was very critical of him, given the fact that he clearly had some sort of problem with Odell Beckham Jr. where no one else in the locker room did. And you could see how open Odell was constantly and how Baker just refused to throw it to him. So he's a selfish person in my assessment of him, but perhaps he's been humbled. Kyle Shanahan, pro players guy, he can make the most out of these kinds of situations. I could see that working, and I guess I'm just very curious about how it will play out. It would work out very well for Baker. I'll say that, because I can't think of another more wide open quarterback situation. Like Trey Lance, I saw him walking around without a walking boot. I think he's healthy or close to it. And they're just not playing him. Kind of says everything you need to know, by the way. But if they can get him for free and Baker can revive his career there, that would be a huge, huge victory for him and his career. So
sorry, this would say I was just thinking for a sec. I don't know. I don't even know who else would want him necessarily.
No one. I mean,
I think that's probably the reason why they just cut bait with not even a.
In the off season, he'll be, he'll be the well, basically, I mean, he's on the final year of his deal. So with the trade deadline passed, there's no way for them to get any value out of him. Yeah. They just did him a solid, essentially. Letting him go. But it's that he would just be a free agent in the next year, and I don't think that waiting until next year benefits him, given what he's put on tape in this year. So he could be some miracle worker and go to San Francisco and win them a Super Bowl. That's not out of the realm of possibility. So we'll just touch on the Giants tying the Commanders really quickly. I mean, what a disappointing result. The Giants had an opportunity, multiple opportunities to win this game. In the fourth quarter, they kept giving the ball back to the Commanders, and then they ended up tying it, sending it to overtime. And it was just a frustrating loss, because even in overtime, the Giants got the ball. They on one overtime possession, there was a miscue. They were crossing midfield and they were on third down, and essentially like Saquon ran into one of the receivers and Daniel Jones, and there was just they were unable to put the game away. And then on the final plays of the game, they were driving and they had to rely on a 58-yard field goal attempt from Graham Gano, and it went short because it's a 58-yard field goal, and those are certainly not automatic. And they lost this game. But I will reiterate that even though the Giants, I think, deserved to win this game based on the positions that they had put themselves in, even though they were down 10-0, had to come back, they were not the more talented team on the field. What sticks out to me with the Giants every single time is that the Giants are one of the least talented rosters in the NFL. And it's a testament to Daboll, Kafka, Wink Martindale, that they are in the position that they're in. And I know there are a lot of people who are hating on some of the play calling yesterday because it was incredibly conservative. They were terrified to pass the ball. Daniel Jones was doing a lot of design runs, but the problem is that when you have Daron Payne, when you have Sweat and Chase Young didn't play yesterday, but
Jonathan Allen.
So that Jonathan Allen, that was who I was really. I not even the ends. I was thinking of Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen in particular. They're so good at clogging run lanes that Saquon couldn't really get going. He had a touchdown, but not much, and he's been quieter these past few weeks because he's a running back. And if you play good run defenses, that's what happens. And this is the time of the year when the run defense and defenses in general start to feel themselves. So you see regressions with some of these offenses that are a little less talented, and that's the Giants. Their receiving core is, I mean, besides the Houston Texans, with the weapons that they have, and I say weapons very loosely, clearly, in my opinion, with the injuries, the worst passing options in the entire NFL. I mean, it was rough. It was rough to watch. And Daniel Jones, I think, plays fine. He threw it a little high for Darius Slayton, but he dropped it. I mean, and he also misread the route. Darius Slayton should be an average wide receiver 3 on a team. Not even a very good wide receiver 3. An average wide receiver 3. And he's the top receiver on that team right now, or as of yesterday. And then the other guy that they were trotting out there was Isaiah Hodgins, who is fine, but he didn't even start the season with the Giants. He was a 6th-round pick for the Buffalo Bills that they got in the proverbial trash heap. And those were the 2 starting receivers for the Giants yesterday, plus Richie James, who did have a clutch catch or 2. But the Giants really just do not have the ability to pass the ball because of that reason. And I think it's a lot more on the talent in the receiving room as opposed to Daniel Jones. Don't think Daniel Jones is the franchise quarterback. I think he's earned the right to be the quarterback next year while they figure out what they're going to do. But the point is that the Giants are the least talented team in the NFC East. The reason that they're at this point is because of execution and strong play calling. And I'm annoyed at Giants fans who want to are fuming at Mike Kafka for not throwing the ball more. What's been helpful about the Giants, or what's been encouraging, is that they understand who they are. And they are not able to do that right now. That's the problem. And that's why the expectations for this team need to come down a little bit, because they are definitely one of the least talented teams in the NFL. They have some splashes, but their 2 most talented players on defense outside in the secondary are not playing right now. The defensive line is starting to get a little healthier, so they could limp into the playoffs. But please just understand that this team is not on the level of the Jets, for example, another team in New York that has a lot of talent and is playing to it. It's just a difference in it's just the quarterback play that's the controversy. But there are a lot more. The issue is personnel, in my opinion. For
Absolutely,
the Giants.
and I think we're just seeing a more natural regression to the mean a little bit with what the Giants have. In terms of their talent level, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's what it's what Brian Daboll was given when he took this job, and what Mike Kafka was given when they came on for their staff. And the Commanders are coming on a little stronger than they were in the beginning of the season. I mean, they got some good really impressive and catches from Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin, and they have Curtis Samuel. It's like they're a pretty high floor team, I would say, in the sense of you can kind of know what you're going to get from them. They'll most likely be able to do it.
Brian Robinson's really showing off,
a strong, sturdy back who can really push through between tackles and get kind of move at will, even while he seems to be getting dragged down by 5 other guys. I think we've just been talking about this in terms of there was always potential that when the ingenuity or the kind of boldness or the ambition of the play calling to kind of satisfy or make up for the lack of talent. When that kind of runs dry a little bit, when that's just not as effective or not working as well, it becomes a talent matchup. It becomes just who has more talent on the team. And unfortunately, just with where the Giants are in terms of injuries and in terms of personnel, and in terms of spending, they're going to kind of lose that battle sometimes. And that's totally it doesn't, for me, it's just like I don't see any of this as particularly discouraging, because I just think there's so much to be done to develop this team further than what they have on paper and what they have in their roster. And to even just see guys who are not very heralded perform better than expected, like guys like Julian Love and Fabian Moreau. And
I love Julian Love.
Yeah, he's been playing fantastic.
Always makes the smartest play. Yeah,
I think it's more about the future than anything else for these. And it's the same thing I feel with the Bears. It's like, they're playing, the Fields is playing well, and they're losing games, so they're going to get a better draft pick, and Fields is like clearly their number one option now. So I think there are certain things where I'm like, I'm not as concerned about a team overperforming like this and now maybe regressing a little bit than some teams who had a far better outlook coming in and who are not performing.
We can transition into a discussion about the Jets now, but that's really why I was annoyed by the Zach Wilson handling, is because just because you guys are winning now doesn't mean that you divert from your plan. And the Giants,
100%. We're seeing the kind of weirdness that comes with diverting from the plan.
Yeah, yeah. So but the Giants aren't doing that, and that's what's good.
Yes,
but
exactly.
they're not making any drastic changes to win now, because they understand this is a process of creating a winning structure, and that
100%.
includes personnel, which the Giants don't have, even though I think they're set with a lot of the coaching staff.
Oh, agreed. Totally.
So the Mike White mania. Here's my theory on this. I was thinking about this because I had two men related to me over, in their late 50s, 60s, who I spoke to over the weekend. One is a Jets fan, one's a Patriots fan, who love Mike White more than anything in the world. I'm exaggerating here, but there was like, how about that Mike White? And I tried to say, well, this is my perspective on the fact that they didn't really necessarily do the right thing in the development of Zach Wilson. It's a sort of a short-term fix. And they were like, no. It's like total punk, total loser. And this was just shared among these two older people in my life. And I only say they're older just because I feel like there is this Jets fan that is like, I want a hard worker, I want a lunch pail guy, I want somebody who's gonna grind it out, who isn't like a snot-nosed punk. And by the way, I'm not talking about Sam with the Patriots fans here. This was just family members. I want lunch pail guy who's gonna grind it out, somebody who works hard and fifth round pick, he's the man. And I think that there's a generational divide to a degree in the kind of player and what some fans are looking for. And that's why, you'll just hear in talk radio here in New York, it's Mike White mania. It doesn't really matter that he threw a pretty bad interception to start the game against the Vikings.
Which is the problem with him, is that there's no ceiling for him.
But that's what and that's what we ended up zeroing in on, is okay.
So then what's next?
So I'm sure, I know Bobby and Massapequa is loving Mike White and telling all his kids, you gotta like Mike White, and this is why Odell Beckham Jr. is a diva. But what is the plan for developing Mike White?
Well, I think that's the thing, is on one hand, I was impressed by their ability to even they were down down bad in the first half, and were able to get it within 5 points, and Mike White rushed a little QB keeper at the 1 yard line into the end zone. But like you said, there were bad picks, there were missed opportunities, and I honestly put a little bit of this on the offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur as well. That some of these play calls to me were baffling at the end of the game. It was a first and goal, and they had 4 plays to get 1 yard, and they couldn't do it because they were going out of the shotgun and taking throwing passes into the end zone to guys like Braxton Berrios who couldn't catch the ball yesterday. When you have James Robinson right there to just maybe see if he can punch one into the end zone for like I was saying, 1 yard.
Yeah.
And it just seems like it's a simultaneous lack of confidence in people who I think are can actually contribute in situations like that, and putting a lot into the hands of the backup, into the hands of Mike White to make something out of nothing, basically.
He's not the backup; he's the savior.
Right.
Well, I mean, but just like that. But look, the defense plays great. I mean, they really clamped down after
25 points, and it's hard. It's obviously hard to contain Justin Jefferson, of course, and it's just I at this point now with the loss, and even though it was a close one, it's just to me, I'm still wondering. I just now am really curious, like what is the plan, not just for next week, but for next season?
This is what I'm saying. I mean, I feel like that's what I'm frustrated about this Mike White conversation. It's just, fan bases.
It's a Band-Aid.
He's a Band-Aid, but fan bases are always going to be this way, where they want. Again, I was just saying this about the Giants. People were saying fire Mike Kafka on Twitter. I saw that, and I know it's just random people, but I feel like those are the people that the Jets are listening to. And I know that Zach Wilson has not played well. I understand that. I know he's been a punk. You handle that internally. You sit down with Garrett Wilson. You sit down with Elijah Moore and say, stop talking about this in the media. We're a team. We handle this with each other. And Zach, like, my
primary concern is that none of these people either A, like him, B, support him, or C, like really care about his well-being, or D, all of the above. because
that's true. I mean, I get it.
Because my thinking is just, if this was potentially another quarterback or another team, I just don't think you'd be seeing this level of public discord without some sort of acknowledgement that it's not really okay for this to happen on the team.
I know he's friends with little white boy Braxton Berrios, and I know that during training camp they were all wearing like T-shirts about how he was having like sex with older women and getting all into that as well. I mean, so like it's not beyond repair.
But even this past week, like they're all wearing Mike White shirts to the game.
But they did that before with Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is like, is there like a shift? Like, is there like are they making a point? Like, I'm just concerned that like this level of out in the open like discontent is like lingering, and
that's on Saleh. That is on Saleh. This is what's annoyed me.
It's on the leaders, right?
Why is Saleh letting guys go, knowing what the #1 story is in the entire NFL? Why is Saleh letting guys go out there with like Mike White T-shirts? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. He has lost control of the way that players are conducting themselves with the media, and they're all over social media doing whatever the hell that they want. I know I sound like an old fogey, but this is important in a New York context because you can't let the media run the narrative. It doesn't happen with the Giants. It always happens with the Jets.
Right, but it also doesn't happen for other teams.
Yeah.
And when it does happen for other teams, it's usually dysfunctional teams.
And this market for media is way different than anywhere else. The only comparable place is New England, where like there's this kind of attention on sports teams,
right,
in Boston. Yeah. But
and they don't want any of that. They wouldn't want any of that stuff getting out about. That's why there was such a commotion about fans wanting Bailey Zappi in there, because it was kind of like why are we so quick to give up on Mac Jones? He's had a few bad games, and you want to put your 6th-round rookie in, like. But
no one is going out wearing Zappi shirts.
That's the thing,
in New England.
There was a slight clamoring, and it's not a story anymore.
Right.
This is still something to be. This is still a topic of conversation. It's none of this continuing, or none of this not being resolved is just good for the disposition of the team going forward.
And it's not even to blame Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. They're in their 20s. They're into social media and showing off. Like,
they're first rounders. They're first rounders. They want
Elijah Moore's not first rounder.
Oh, sorry, he's the second round. Right? Yeah. I mean, they're like high draft picks. They want to be involved in their offense. They want to be #1 targets. Like, I understand, but I also see what you're saying in the sense of that type of stuff can be more of a self-inflicted wound than just expressing yourself.
Yes, it is. it's gotten out of control. I think they've been really drinking the Kool-Aid from the New York media, and Saleh just seems very out of his depth in terms of PR. And part of it might be Woody Johnson and that team like skimping financially on a PR team, because that's the like hidden secret of these NFL teams is, yes, there's a salary cap, you can only spend X amount on players, but the Bengals have a really shitty like training facility compared to New England or the Giants or whatever. There are teams that decide to invest in their team, and that includes public relations. And in the New York media market, that needs to be locked up. And the Jets have never been like that. And it's the worst I've ever seen with this situation. Even though they are winning, it's just I think it's going to collapse the way that they're like letting everybody talk. And the team is being undercut by this stuff.
But compare. I know it's obviously a much smaller media market, but speaking of the Bengals, Joe Burrow was going out there every week last year and getting demolished because of how poorly his offensive line was playing, and he was with a not very inspired play calling. They still made it to the Super Bowl, but there was no like, I'm annoyed with Zach Taylor, like I'm bothered by the play calling. There was no like, I'm getting my ass kicked every week. Like he wasn't.
Daniel Jones in the New York market never blamed his offensive line. It's been the worst in football until this year for years.
Like there are examples where like I think there are like legitimate gripes to be had where players are not as expressive about it and it's not become a story. And like I was saying last week or the week before, perception is reality. If this is what's being conveyed and what's being reported and what people are seeing, whether it gets squashed or not, whether it perpetuates or not, that becomes the story.
Yeah.
It just becomes reality. It just becomes it becomes an associative thing. You think of the Jets, you think of this controversy. And that's just not good for a team who's trying to be a competitive playoff team. It's what happens to a team like the Raiders or a team like the Broncos who are trying to be more competitive this season and are not playing as well. Whereas the Jets they're 7-5, they're still in the hunt, they're still comfortably in the 7 seed, but this shouldn't be dogging them. This shouldn't be a problem, and it still is. I still think it very much is, regardless of whether White continues to play well or not.
It's a festering wound. He might play well, but Zach Wilson would have been played well against the Chicago Bears, and I mean at least serviceably. I'm convinced of that. And this So Emma's bookie writes in, Saleh would have lost the locker room defense if he kept playing Zach Wilson. They're supposed to sacrifice their first potential playoff appearance in a decade for the sake of continuity. I think organizations that are smarter do try to develop their high investments in in players.
Or you actually try and mediate if there's a problem, like if there's actually an issue, like
you mediate.
I mean,
you keep it in house.
Let's be honest. I mean, Draymond Green punched one of his teammates in the face and they're still trying to like work things out and like, play together. Like it's these things happen.
But speaking of it, that's another Jets controversy that got way out of proportion because they don't deal with the New York media. Yes.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Another locker room dispute that was litigated in public because Gino's jaw got broke over a gambling argument.
When you think about the Jets, this is the stuff you think about. Like you think about Geno Smith getting punched over $400, you think about the butt fumble, like you think about like annoying and kind of embarrassing things. And like that's like you said, it's a public relations problem and it's a perception problem.
And also I'll just bring up to the Bills, like I mean, I'm not comparing Zach Wilson to Josh Allen, but most people, especially PFF people, talk about how terrible Josh Allen's first 2 seasons were. Oh, he's awful. He can't hit the broadside of a barn. He's so inaccurate. Year 3, look what happens. There is value in continuity, especially if you're investing in picks.
And he wasn't like, sure, he did not perform that well as a rookie. Neither did Mahomes. Mahomes barely played as a rookie. You know, sure, he didn't play as well second season around, but again, was Stephon Diggs, or like, I mean, even still, I think I'm trying to even remember when Diggs joined the team, but anybody on that team, were they being like, this guy sucks, like this guy, like we want Tyrod Taylor to start, or like we want Case Keenum, like, you know, this, I'm not even sure if I'm getting all the continuity of who was on the team at the
no Diggs came later,
but I'm saying, I guess I mean, when he was still finding his rhythm, now he's literally one of, if not the best quarterback in the league. what if they had just everyone there just lost patience, be like, we need to win now, and kind of ruined his confidence.
And I don't think Zach Wilson will ever be anywhere close.
No, I agree.
But
it's more just like I think it's
this
more
is
the
a process
the
argument.
broad contours of do you continue to try even though results have been diminishing or not super satisfactory, but this person is your second overall pick, and do you try to keep him not only happy but also make it so that it's a priority that the team coalesces around each other and around him? And I don't think that's really a priority.
Right. And I'm just trying to see his second year. The Buffalo Bills finished second in the AFC East. So they were in a very similar position to the Jets at this point, meaning they were still they lost in the playoffs. They lost to the Houston Texans in the wild card round. But just because they were in the playoff hunt, that didn't mean that they gave up on their year 2 quarterback.
Right.
I mean, that's all I can say about it.
It's always it's more. It would be one thing if they like cut Zach Wilson or like traded Zach Wilson. It'd be one thing if they traded for a vet or signed a vet or something. This is almost worse because this is purgatory.
Yeah.
There's no long-term understanding here.
All while the whole world is pointing at him and mocking him.
And all while the team is good. Like this is also the problem. This is also always the problem with a team like the Jets or the Mets is these types of controversies or these types of issues shouldn't be dogging a good team.
Mm-hmm.
This also happens with the Mets, when they were losing. They were had a bad streak, and frickin' Francisco Lindor was like, or Javi Baez when he was still on the Mets was like booing the fans.
Yeah, right.
And it's like the team is good. Like, don't just you guys are idiots. Like, why are we not focusing on the team performing well and focusing on a player literally booing his fans? It's like only these types of organizations can make success feel bad.
Yep, exactly. I think we've covered this extensively. I just feel like
do I send you an invoice afterwards, or?
I don't take insurance, so I'm like every therapist in New York. Yeah, whatever. I could get into that, but like no therapists in Manhattan or Brooklyn take insurance anymore. It's just ridiculous. They want you to pay out of pocket. We need to. It's just my therapist. I still just Zoom with her. She's based in New Jersey,
yeah,
so
it's like fun for me.
It's just some.
Or
she takes insurance, thank God. All right, we'll just touch on the Cowboys a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Cowboys just crushed the Colts. It was close going into halftime, 21-19. But the Colts just... I know the Cowboys are dominant, and part of the reason they're able to be so dominant is because the run game just looks so good right now. And
they're finding that mix. They're finding that good mix of Zeke and Tony Pollard.
It's sort of a mix, but it's not really. Like... I agree with you. You're right. And it takes the pressure off of Tony Pollard, but part of me just feels like they give Ezekiel Elliott a goal line carry when the game's completely out of reach, and then he gets his touchdown. Yeah. Look at me. I'm still in the mix. And it's just like we see who's better here. We see who's 100%. Better here.
Pollard is so much better, but I guess almost it's probably just helpful for them to just be like, listen, like, we'll still get you involved somehow. We're up. It's 35-10 or whatever. Like if you could pad your stats a little bit. Well, Tony Pollard will get us to the end zone. You can go in the end zone, Zeke, basically.
And that was when he was ripping. And in that final part of the game, he was ripping off some runs. But it's like, okay, the Colts had given up by that point because the second half of the game, Jelani Woods lost a fumble, right? Mm-hmm. Matt Ryan threw 2 interceptions almost essentially back to back.
Deron Bland, two picks in the game. A guy, he's come. They are just what I find so amazing about the Cowboys defense is that they just find these guys. They seemingly besides Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs, they sometimes just find these guys that are just like I've never heard of or just not particularly heralded. This Deron Bland was a 5th round pick. He's a 5th round rookie from this year's draft. got 2 picks in this game, and he's like one of their better, one of their better corners. Like,
and I feel like DeMarcus Lawrence has played for the Dallas Cowboys for 45 years.
Right, and he's still producing at a high level.
I keep thinking he's going to drop off a little bit more than he does.
And Dante Fowler, like a high first round pick reclamation project who's bounced around the league, playing really well for them. Like, it's just why Dorrance Armstrong, another guy who's kind of just come on really strong. I'm just always very impressed by their ability just to like develop these guys into really high-end starters from all different walks. Like you have the blue chip talent in Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs. You have late round rookies.
Although Trayvon Diggs gave up a really embarrassingly bad touchdown at one point. Sometimes that's the Trayvon Diggs experience.
I was just going to say it's literally the Trayvon Diggs experience.
But he's gotten better at that this year. He's at just covering as opposed to going for the ball constantly.
The thing, exactly. He's either going to have it's trying to strike the balance between a guy making a phenomenal pick or just jumping a route to try and do so and getting burned as a result.
Right.
But I've just been so impressed with this defense. And then now combining with Dak being back in this run game, just looking so solid, and the offensive line really figuring it out. Like, this is a scary team. Like I was saying,
and Michael Gallup is a huge addition back from ACL
he's playing so well. He's
good
back.
For him.
Totally. I
always been very maybe because his name is boring. I feel like people just don't always underestimate his talent. But Michael Gallup's a real receiver.
And they're also they're playing sometimes now with these multiple tight end sets with Dalton Schultz and Peyton Hendershot and Drew Ferguson, these again kind of unheralded guys. Not Schultz. Schultz is a great tight end. And they're being able to use these more like jumbo larger sets to really make stuff happen both on the ground with like extra blocking or just like getting these tight ends out in space. And Dak is just Dak is so good with his brain as well. He's just such a high processor, and he's not always the best deep ball guy, but his intermediate throws are just beautiful when he's on. So he's just able to just on the between the numbers, short and intermediate yardage, just really collect, and it's just showing what the ceiling is for this team, and it's pretty cool to see. I mean, like I was saying before, this is the Colts.
I counter Mike McCarthy.
That's the only thing can this team survive Mike McCarthy in the playoffs? That's the question.
And look, he's exceeded my expectations with them this year, especially when Dak Prescott was out with the thumb injury, but. Still, it's Mike McCarthy, and I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop for them.
Exactly.
Because I think Dak Prescott's a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, but overall, I still think the Eagles are a better team, and I think that they're better coached. Even though we should give Dan Quinn credit. I think he's the heart and soul of this team.
And he's
Cowboys.
What makes them hum. He's what makes the defense what it is. He's the guy that's developing these guys who aren't only blue chip talent. It's really amazing. And he could have easily, after last year's performance with them, he could have easily gone for a head coaching job, and he decided against it. I mean, I imagine there's a little bit of PTSD from the last time he was a head coach.
Yes, but he's gonna try to make his decision a little bit more thoughtfully this time.
but I mean, I get it, because he's an amazing coordinator, and he's propped up last few years one of, if not the best defense in the league.
Yeah,
with some amazing personnel. So it's cool to watch, and
he just
54 points on anybody is a wild score.
Yeah, he just bolstered his head coaching case, as you say, for next
100%
offseason. And just the issue for him is like, people want the offensive wonderkind.
It's harder and harder, I think, every year to wonder how many more defensive-minded coaches will be getting more opportunities. Because I think, especially post McDaniel as well and Dable, I just think like there's more proof of concept or more anecdotal evidence to be like,
Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, you get a young offensive-minded guy, and maybe they can make it a team that wasn't super exciting offensively much more exciting.
Yeah,
and there aren't that many kind of like counters to that coaching profile, except for maybe Mike Vrabel, basically,
and Mike Tomlin, and that's it. right now.
Because even Matt Eberflus, it's like the Bear. He was a defensive coordinator, but the Bears, there's nothing really definitional about the Bears yet. Besides Fields, and that's more Luke Getzey than it is.
Yeah. The defense sucks too.
The defense is bad, and there's no personnel. Like, it's just
they're a bad team.
Yeah,
right.
It's not something that I can really point to yet.
In terms of proven defensive head coaches, it's Belichick, it's Vrabel, it's Mike Tomlin right now, who are doing a good job, and that's pretty much it. Pete Carroll.
And Carroll, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's a second, a defensive backs coach as his like nucleus.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're almost okay. I guess we'll just briefly touch on the Broncos. Then we'll take a quick break and we will take some calls. So update on the bathroom-o-meter.
Oh yeah, hold on. Let me get it.
We got to get that graphic. This show provides you high quality NFL content, including a weekly update on Russell Wilson's bathroom to touchdown ratio. Now, for those of you who don't know, there is a Twitter bot that is following Russell Wilson's touchdown pass count compared to the number of bathrooms that he has in his mega mansion that he purchased from money that he got from the Denver Broncos. I saw some Denver Broncos newsletter fan account tweeted out something, and I'm sorry guys, I do feel bad for Broncos fans. There's a lot of great Broncos fans. I know that in Denver it's a big deal in that city, this team, but I couldn't help but laugh seeing Denver Broncos 365 at Daily Bronco saying, "Hey Russ, we know that you like doing good things for the city you live in. It's time for you to give back to the community and significantly reduce your $250 million contract. Do the right thing. Your move is yours." Why would he do that? Why the hell would he do that? And I hate to break it to you guys, the Walmart heirs are not the community in Denver. They could pay him under the table or something like that to make that happen, but why the hell would he give up his money? However, here we are at week 13, and now it is he's been averaging under a touchdown a game per season. That there, you can see it there, 0.73 touchdowns per season. So he could pass the bathroom threshold of 12, but he did not throw a touchdown pass in a terrible 10-9 loss to the Baltimore Ravens, who lost Lamar Jackson to injury. Seems like it's not that serious, but it was fairly early in the game, and they did not score a touchdown, nor did he throw a touchdown pass. They had 3 field goals, and the Broncos and I'm sorry, the Ravens won at the very end of the game, and it was a 10-9 game. Seems like Nathaniel Hackett is making it out of this season, and then he will get fired. But
I mean, I simply can't. I can't imagine. It's unimaginable that he is still going to be head coach going into week 14.
I just feel badly for him to a degree. It's just Russell Wilson is terrible, dude.
It's at this point. I get someone.
He's bad too.
I think it was either Ben Solak from The Ringer or Kevin Clark, one of the Ringer NFL guys. But I don't think this is that particularly a bad idea in the sense that at this point we're going to week 14. We saw an embarrassment in week 1 against the Seahawks with the lack of clock management and putting the ball on letting the responsibility of winning that game into a 64-yard Brandon McManus field goal over Russ converting a 4th down. Like, yes, if that was an anomaly, sure. It has actually gotten worse since then.
Yeah.
They lost to Sam Darnold and the Panthers. They lost this game 10-9 with Russ not being able to throw a touchdown. What is Nathaniel Hackett offering that a Giro Evero, the defensive coordinator, aka the unit that is actually good on the Broncos? What is Hackett offering that Evero couldn't if they just gave him the interim head coaching role and fired Hackett?
The appearance of stability.
I think that must be it, right?
It's got to be. Right? I mean, this is their first time owning an NFL team. They might not know, what the process is like firing a coach mid-season. But to your point, the Denver defense, even though they traded Bradley Chubb, they still show up to play every week. These were the Ravens' possessions against Denver. Punt, 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 field goal, punt, half-ended, punt, interception, interception, punt, until they scored. Until they scored. They scored a field goal until the end of the game, and Russell Wilson and the offense could not figure out a way to put them away.
Imagine if these guys
with Huntley, not Lamar Jackson.
Huntley, exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine if these guys had a halfway competent offense to buttress their defensive performance. These guys are good. Patrick Surtain is one of the best corners in the league.
I know.
Aaron Browning is a rising star, an unheralded rising star. They got Randy Gregory. This team is this. They have Justin Simmons, one of the better corners in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a good defense that is being sunk. It's almost hard to talk about them because of how bad the offense
There's
is.
nothing new for us to say. I mean,
Right.
We'll update you on the bathroom-o-meter, but other than that, it's just a pathetic display. And you have Broncos fans pleading for Russell Wilson to give back some of that contract or cut it down. That's not happening.
Nope.
That's not happening. You think that guy with that ego?
This guy, I bet Westbrook's taking a gander at the bathroomometer, and he's going to install a few more bathrooms before the end of the year,
Yeah.
just to make it a little harder to reach for him to reach the limit.
I mean, he is this guy's like,
or he might be demolishing some of his bathrooms.
demolishing. It's got to go the inverse. I was gonna let it go, but he he's like prosperity gospel for quarterbacks, in that he just thinks that he is God's gift to earth and that he deserves this money because of it, and that it's everyone else around him who's failing him. So I do feel bad for Broncos fans. I don't see this getting any better. There's not much more to say except
Let's ride
to 2026,
yes.
when maybe you're going to be able to come out from under this hole. But
$160 million later.
Oh my God. All right. We're going to take a quick break, folks. And when we come back, we'll take some calls really quickly. We had a long day today. I don't know if you know, Sam went long. And also, Bradley's been doing 2 jobs because Matt's out today. So
It's Matt's birthday. Happy birthday,
Happy
Matt.
birthday, Matt. We might just take a few quick calls and then wrap up. We will see you soon. We are back. Phones are on. We're going to be taking a few calls, reading some IMs, and getting out of here. Calling from a 709 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello. J-Man from The Rock.
J-Man from The Rock. What's on your mind?
J-Man.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry about the bad juju situation last week.
Well, I mean...
Right.
That was shocking behavior.
I know.
Denunciation, rejection.
I can't deal with the Rangers right now, dude. I just, I I'm protecting myself and trying not to think about it because I won't lie to you. I started talking about it the other day and I felt myself getting a little choked up. So sometimes that happens because I'm a girl.
Anyway, in the NBA, I'll try to switch up topics for
there you go.
So the Raptors are playing at home to the Celtics tonight. Ball night.
Yeah.
Big night. Big game. I think the Raptors are going to win. They got a lot of injuries, but they're getting healthy. And, they had a couple blowout losses the week. I mean, the NBA is open this year, especially the West. I mean, I don't know what's going on in the West. Golden State started out like 0-8 on the road. I don't know what the hell's going on. They had an incident with Green and Jordan Poole. I don't know if you remember that, where he punched him.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that.
And I actually, a lot of people like to, I know Draymond with the crypto, so I'm not talking about that. But you think about great players like Green throughout history. They've always been like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Hard, tough SOBs, Kevin Garnett. You can go through the list. So people kind of like forget that. Like, those big-time defensive guys, that's what they're like. Rasheed Wallace,
Yeah.
Ben Wallace.
He is a throwback player in that way.
Yeah. I mean, he is a great player. Like, I don't like him at all. I didn't like Kobe, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, as a person. But guess what? One of the best of all time, probably the second best of all time, because he was fierce, right?
You're gonna say Kobe before LeBron? I'm
No. I'm a LeBron defender. I actually love LeBron.
I was really nervous.
So you're doing LeBron, Kobe,
I was
LeBron, Kobe, MJ.
I was about to yell at
Okay.
you.
All right. So.
I don't want to lock you in, J-Man, to a ranking.
Well, Michael Jordan, number 1. LeBron, number 2. Wilt, 3. Kobe, 4. How about that?
I think that's a very respectable ranking.
Yeah. I mean, LeBron played, people say, LeBron second. LeBron played with the most, if Durant didn't do that coward move and go to the Warriors, he's looking at 6 titles, in my opinion. Right?
Yeah.
Keep
That's
going.
I don't even want to get into that Durant situation.
Okay.
But the Nets, a lot of people are excited now about the Nets. Oh, Kyrie's back. Oh, it's all going to work out. It ain't going to work out. First round exit. That's it. That's what's going to work out.
All right. Well, I'll hold you to that, J-Man. I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I don't think they're winning the championship, though. I don't think they're getting past the Bucks or the Celtics. So.
I agree. They're the 2 best teams by far in the East now. So before I go, there's this former President Bush, right?
Mm-hmm. Heard of him.
So he had this great quote, right? He said, fool me once.
Shame on you. Fool me twice.
Fool me twice. Can't get fooled again.
Can't get fooled again.
Fool me another time.
With that said, my team, the St. Louis Blues, are in New York tonight.
That's your team, huh?
Yeah, and I'm guaranteeing the Rangers are going to win tonight. Guaranteed.
Oh, did I just hang up? Whoops.
Oh, you actually did. Shouldn't have said the W word, J-Man.
Calling from a 646 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey. Hello?
Hi.
Hey, it's Niall. Calling back from Trinidad.
Niall
Hi, Niall.
from Trinidad. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I didn't catch all the show. Did y'all talk about the World Cup?
We did
today?
not.
Oh, yeah.
We should touch on it a little bit because the U.S. lost. England beat Senegal. Now what?
Brazil just beat the crap out of.
Beat the crap out of Korea.
Korea.
That's fun. Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Niall? What do you think? What do you think about all the action?
Well, I think it's been good. It's been pretty decent. A lot of African teams did pretty well this year. 2 Asian teams went in this year. I think it's been pretty good. I mean, England also advanced. I'm not really sold on a lot of teams. France is okay, but they're injury prone. Brazil are kind of good this last game because Neymar was back. But it's just like I'm not really sold on a lot of the games because I just see like deficiencies. Now I may have like issue with the U.S. with the commentators because I mean, not to be biased or anything like that, but you know, there's like we're gonna win a World Cup. I'm like, only 8 nations have ever won a World Cup, so. Like, where you think?
Wait, they said that? That's stupid.
No, the whole booth, like, you know, Alexei Lalas and Clint Dempsey, those guys, they're delusional, honestly. Like, it's just.
You know something? I'm almost disgusted to hear Alexei Lalas, Clint Dempsey, Landon Donovan. Yeah, because it's almost like especially how the U.S. got played in Netherlands. And it's almost like I was watching a game, and Netherlands pretty much gave you the ball, and they fooled you into a sense of hope, and then they just kept they tricked them into saying, "Oh yeah, y'all can beat us."
Well, because what they were doing was basically saying, "Run at our defense." And it's like, you want to run at Virgil van Dijk, you want to run at the guy who's 6'5" and could just black you out in terms of, you know, shots on goal. And then they just got then they just on the other end, I mean, they were trying to hang with them defensively, but the Netherlands could just create so many more shots that Iran could not.
No. It's when they played U.S. Not Iran, U.S.
No. I'm saying the Netherlands compared to Iran.
Yeah. Because they would tend to hit them on the U.S. whole game was let's hit them on the flanks.
Right.
And then it's almost like I guess they thought okay, we're younger, we're better, but then it's almost like, and even watching the defensive plays, it's like, damn, y'all not marking. I mean, the last goal, I'm virtually looking on the screen, and I'm like, that guy is open.
There's nobody in the box. There's nobody contesting.
Nobody's there, and I'm just I'm like yelling at the screen, like, yo, there's a guy open on the side over there. Like, what do you guys do? And the guy, he's waving his hand, and he finally passed the ball. Easy goal. The goal that the U.S. scored, to me, that was like the jokiest goal I've seen yet.
It's terrible.
Because it came off his back knee, and I was like, how the hell did that even get in there?
Yeah.
But that's and then going back to the commentary, they asked Burkhardt, they're saying, yeah, we're going to win the World Cup in 2026. Like, really? And then you kept hearing, and then they asked the goalkeeper. He said the same thing the day after too, and I was like, really? And then, you know, it's this whole. It's like 8 nations have won the World Cup. How long the World Cup's been out? Many years. It's the right type of team, structure, all this and that.
System, nationally.
Right.
Yeah.
Rich kids playing, soccer over here. And then I know Emma will be like, it's football, but it's like, don't disrespect the game. It's football. It's not soccer. It's football. Let's leave it as that.
Niall, we live in the U.S. Like, I don't go to France and say, okay, this is a roll, not a croissant.
Yeah, it's fromage.
No, but I understand that. But the thing about it is, like, you're good at basketball, you're good at this and that. But then when you want to come over and be like, it's a kind of like a disrespect. Oh. I don't go over there. Right? You understand what I'm saying?
I don't think so, though, because it's just the American vernacular for a sport. I mean...
Well, no, that's like... No, look at the commercial. Have you seen the commercial with Peyton Manning and Beckham?
Yeah.
That commercial right there, it's like, just leave it as is. If you want to call it that, fine. And if we want to call it this, fine.
Yeah.
But yes, it's all cool. But don't try to tell me that this is there, because the same way, like, you don't go over there and call it croissants. We don't come over there.
You can call it football all you want.
Right. And you can call it soccer all you want, but don't dictate to me. You don't dictate to me that it's soccer and I'm saying it wrong. That's all I'm saying. You want to call it that?
I agree.
That's fine.
Agree.
Right. And the last thing, and because I know you run out of time and you guys want to go, and it seems like with Fox Sports too, and Bradley maybe might agree with me, it's like they're peddling this thing to get more viewers to want to watch it because, like, we're going to get it next. So it draws in more viewers. And to me, it's like you're peddling snake oil. Belgium has a good team. Netherlands has a good team. Netherlands never won a World Cup.
Yeah.
Belgium has the golden age.
Well, they're selling hope. That's how it goes.
Exactly.
That's how it goes.
That's what it is. They're selling hope, but it's almost like you keep selling hope. Eventually, people are not going to believe.
I hear you. All right, appreciate it, Niall.
And Bradley, you better get back on those picks, man. You've been
So
coming
bad.
with some trash.
So bad, Niall.
You've been coming with some trash.
Don't use fade me really hard. Fade me so hard.
What? Hey, get back on it. Sometimes I'm hearing you talk, and you're talking yourself out of a win.
Oh, I just need to be more confident. You're saying?
No, yeah, because Emma. No, something. Emma does the same thing too. Emma, you be on point, and then all of a sudden, I'm hearing you talking, but you lack confidence on your pick too, because you talking yourself out of pick two. That's why you.
I went 2-1 last week, baby.
I'm trying to get in Emma's head.
2-1 last week. But remember when you were losing when you were losing and Bradley was winning, there was a lot of games, and I forgot to say that last week. I mean, when I spoke to you the week before, you were like confident in your thing, and all of a sudden you were like, you're talking yourself on the mic out of your win.
I know. All right, now we gotta jump. We gotta jump. Call in next Monday, and we'll chat a little bit more.
Right, yo, have a pleasant day. Thanks for y'all being on the show.
Thanks,
Catch y'all next week.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks, Niall.
Bye.
All right. Colin from a 502 area code. I think I know who this is. 502.
Do you know who this is?
I think so.
Who do you think it is?
I think you're Will.
I am Will.
Ah.
Hey, Will.
Thanks for remembering.
Hi, Will.
Well, why did Indiana beat UNC and then lose to Rutgers for the sixth time?
Oh my God. What?
I'm pissed.
Me too. UNC has just sucked, but losing 4 in a row they've dropped from number 1 to completely out of the rankings. But Rutgers is just a very physical team, and I think on the road and facing that for really the first time all season, despite playing in the same conference, they just looked overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what to say about that.
That's all right. It's a long season.
I've wanted to rant about several topics. I don't want to keep you all too long, but
no, go ahead.
Well, the only 2 good things that happened for me was the IU men's soccer is in the Final Four now, so I'm very excited for that. And then the IU women's basketball team is number 4. Still undefeated, despite having to play a tournament in a hotel conference room. I'm still so mad about that. I could go on and on about just how the NCAA is so corrupt and they don't care.
Yeah.
Going from like Sedona Prince talking about the tournament a couple years ago during COVID and how I just can't, and just not seeing much improvement there. But so that's that. But I know you don't want to talk about hockey very much, Emma.
No, it's okay. I'm down. I mean, I guess it's good that we're speaking today because
that's right.
Tonight's
Rangers
the showdown.
Blues.
I know. I was so excited to kind of like trash talk with you, but now it's just like
it's depressing.
I know, because like, okay, I don't want you to hang up on me, so I'm not gonna say any like win or loss or anything.
Wow.
But okay.
No. Sorry. But I know I've joked about him, but I'm so I'm so fucking sick of Jordan Bennington.
Oh my God, that was going to be my next question to you. So
he hit Zucker, right? Or was it Zucker?
Yeah.
He's such a dirty little shit. Like, what is his
he
problem?
like that? Yeah, he just seems like I don't know why he has such like a nasty streak.
Like that?
Yeah, why are you like?
I mean, he does seem like
just punch the guy out of nowhere coming around the
right.
around the horn there.
There are a lot of these guys in hockey, unfortunately.
Oh, of course, and it stemmed from the whole incident with Nazem Kadri and
oh my God, of course,
all of that. Yeah, and I was so because he in effect caused a lot of Blues fans, and there are very good Blues fans out there, fellow Blues fans who were understandably like, hey, this is wrong. You all shouldn't be going after Kadri, based on his religion or his ethnic background, which is what a lot of them were doing. But in an extent, he was the one who was sparking a lot of this. And now to see him, and especially out of how shitty he's played, and it's not just him because the defense has been terrible in front of him and Grice, but
But that's the thing, though. It's hard to. It is harder to swallow or stomach these like this behavior when he's also not playing well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Right.
It doesn't justify. It wouldn't justify it if he were, but it's almost less. It's less palatable, or it's less like. It is less. You're less inclined to want to give this guy a chance when he's not playing well and he's acting like an asshole.
Oh yeah, he. And Craig Berube, understandably, was like, "Hey, I mean, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, so I'm only speaking to what he said in like the media and the public sphere." But he understandably was like, "You need to cut this shit out, Jordan. I mean, this is unacceptable." And I'm like, and I saw several Blues fans who were like, "Well, they should also be. This is just hockey, The defense is the one that's letting them down." It's like, fuck you. You are not allowed to be like, hey, the whole team needs to be stepping up while, this guy is in effect, losing his cool on several occasions and costing his team. Like, granted, the whole team is playing like shit, but,
they're not all really punching out other players.
And also it's also just against basically how it was a sucker punch, because goaltenders, if you're going to fight in hockey, you drop your gloves, you go at it, you face off.
Right.
I mean, there is an element of like kind of courtesy in that way. And Binnington just sucker punched him as he was circling around behind the net. And I mean, the problem too is that here's like just a larger problem with hockey, and I hope you don't mind that I'm taking it to a bigger picture place here, because Binnington's issues are well documented, but he gets a longer leash because he's a North American player. I'm now seeing, I truly think that there are a lot of head coaches in the NHL who are xenophobic about Russian players, European players more generally. And if this kind of crap was happening from like a Russian guy, diva, total like, prima donna, doesn't care about the grit and the sacrifice of the game, doesn't work that hard, and you see that kind of stereotype throughout the league, particularly with Russian players. These North American guys get free reign to do whatever the hell that they want because they're a part of the frat culture. They're the old boys club, and so Binnington to me is indicative of that.
Oh, for sure. It's in a league that still allows, Tony DeAngelo and Tom Wilson to still be in there.
Yeah.
It's like, are we really surprised? But I don't know.
For some reason, DeAngelo has value to a team, right? Like,
yeah,
right.
Wow.
As long as they're contributing something. But I appreciate you all letting me kind of riff about that. It's been really bugging me, so I thank you all for allowing me to.
Of course,
we'll see how it shakes out tonight. We know that Buchnevich still holds a special place in my heart, and you guys won that trade because he's putting up points, and the Rangers have one true right wing, and that's Capo Caco, and the rest of the team sucks. Although, hey, look, Vitaly Kravtsov scored, but they should have lost. It's just whatever. That was, in my opinion, Drury maybe that was some of the anti-Russian stuff also applied to Buchnevich, in my opinion. That's just a thought to think about.
I would not be surprised. But yeah, good luck tonight. Yeah.
Mutual respect, at least from my end. I root for the Blues when I'm not, rooting for the Rangers. So,
but if I'm in goal and you're circling around, watch out, buddy. Okay.
Oh no!
Just watch out. Okay?
I like the. I was rooting for the Rangers in that Cup run. So
all right,
last year.
Shaking hands.
Anyway,
appreciate you.
Shaking hands.
Bye, Will.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, guys. That's it for our call portion of the day. Hanging up. Sorry, guys. Just gonna read some IMs and then we will get out of here. Valshell, Bradley giving Stan Van Gundy vibes.
That's a foul. Mark, you see, that's a foul on the floor.
That's pretty good. Emma Fanland, do you ever watch the Pat McAfee show? The cast treats him like a much more reverent figure, and a lot of times will give him rhythmic affirmation as he makes points in a tangent. It gives his words more gravitas, and I think you would really benefit from a more Southern church vibe from Bradley when giving your spicy takes.
Oh yeah, so like when how when McAfee is like, when he was talking about the NFL, right?
They're like giving him snaps essentially.
He go, we paid $60 million. Yeah. It's like, all right, guys.
I'm not that into McAfee. I mean, I find he seems like a fun personality, but he got a big payday, and now he just gives he's very much an access journalist.
Oh, for sure. I mean that's the whole Rodgers
thing. The whole Rodgers thing is like that was embarrassing for anyone. Like, if you're a media figure, the way McAfee conducted himself and just like letting Rodgers say whatever the hell he wanted about vaccines was
unchallenged.
So that changed my opinion of him. Even though I found him like mildly entertaining, now I find him unserious.
PFT commenter and Big Cat literally were more like scrutinizing of Rodgers' COVID positions.
Unfortunately, they're affiliated with Barstool, but Big Cat and PFT commenter are some
funny.
of my favorite NFL media personalities. Hate the rest of Barstool,
but they're
love
fun.
those guys, sure. And I think PFT commenter has good politics too. Antifa Lockhart, do you believe in prophecy? There is a prophecy in Chicago that each head coach of the Chicago Bears of Arlington Heights shall defeat the Packers exactly once their first season. This is there is though the last one who didn't, and there was Mike Ditka, which means they're on their way to the Super Bowl in 2 years. All right, well, that's analytics, baby. Dan from Columbus, the Russell Wilson bathroom graph doesn't mark his bye week, so it's fake news. I'm being sarcastic, although I did Google their schedule to confirm what it was. Aaron funny. Is not cool. Here comes Emma with the Cowboys haterade. I mean, everyone hates the Cowboys, so I'm not
just
new.
like breathing air.
I just hate them more than most because of the whole Giants thing. I mean, hey, prove me wrong. You guys haven't won a Super Bowl in decades, so... Fierce Deity. I mean, people want to get to being a legit contender for a championship, but you also have to have a good time on a week-to-week basis, and you don't have to be in your 50s to grow tired of a guy who sucks and is also a tool. Backup quarterbacks who come in and play well are always going to be popular. Zappy Mania died down because despite still not having a good year, Mac Jones isn't an asshole. I mean, I don't know. What reasons do Jets fan have to stand by Zach Wilson other than he can throw the ball 60 yards in practice? Again, this is just stuff I think that you have to sell to the team internally.
That's it. I guess it's less the particulars than what handling a situation like this entails and leads to.
If you really feel that way about him, lost the locker room, don't like him as a kid, think he's a snot-nosed idiot, no redemption, you quietly do this and trade him.
Right.
They have ruined their asset if they don't see he's the future.
Like, does it help more for it to be public, this type of scorn? Or like you said, would it help to, even if it's the case, to keep it a little bit more close to the chest?
Yeah. So, all right, in the final IM of the day. Dan from Columbus. Well, I already read that. Wu-Tang Forever. If the Seahawks pick top 3, would you take Will Anderson or Jalen Carter? I'm higher on Carter.
Carter is nasty.
Yeah, I mean...
But Anderson is like, from a production standpoint and an athleticism standpoint, he is like, he's one of the wildest like linebackers I've ever seen play. Like he's so good.
So for the Seahawks,
but Carter is like.
I know. He's like
he Trayvon
kind of
Walker 2.0 basically.
Right. He plays kind of a hybrid defensive line position. Right. Whereas Will Anderson, it's like he's more of a standard defensive end.
Yeah, like his biggest strength, I would say, is pass rush. Is just mostly like he just gets home to the quarterback like in a half a second.
I mean, let me think about it for a second. You answer first.
This specifically for the Seahawks?
Yeah.
Oh, I take Jalen Carter.
That's what I'm trying.
Only because I just think it gives them a not only an athletic freak, but like a level of defensive versatility that they don't have.
They might, and that might be the case because they still run a version of that Seattle scheme, so it's going to be 4-3.
And to have a guy that could basically be like Michael Bennett, but younger, more athletic, and can both rush the pass and run stuff, and like go drop in coverage as well, while being as large as he is. Like,
I think you're right.
It would
Good question though, by the way.
Oh, for sure. It's interesting but I don't really think you can go wrong. I'm just so intrigued by the traits with Jalen Carter and whether it can translate to.
And I need to look more into it, but I am a traits queen. I'm always like, on that side of things as opposed to production in college in particular. So I gotta watch more as opposed to just. I really have more. I don't watch a ton of college football, so I've been reading more. But I need to see for myself.
Yeah, when Emma uses my back as a footstool, she usually has me call her the traits queen.
Yeah.
So,
we should rename the show that.
Little inside baseball.
Get to it.
But
do you guys see how I snap?
With a feather.
Yeah, I never have told people this. I don't tell people this. I don't know how to snap.
Oh, really?
So this is how you're supposed to, right?
No, with 2 fingers. I don't do it with 2 fingers.
I can't do it with one.
Well, you don't use these 2 fingers?
I don't even know. I do it like this with my fingernail.
So it's middle.
It's my middle finger on,
thumb,
and I can only do it with my left hand. It is just I don't know why.
Middle finger, thumb, and then you just snap.
I know it. So you can hear I'm trying. Right?
I can't.
Oh wait! I just did it for the first time.
There you go. That's good.
See, I don't even know, but I guess I learned it the wrong way as a kid, so I've always just been doing it like this. So with the middle finger on top of my nail.
I really would have. If you hadn't highlighted that, that was. I've never seen that before. That's crazy.
See, it sounds normal.
Like that.
That's why I just never learned to do it the right way. So it's middle finger. Should I try it again?
There you go. That's it.
Yeah, I know, but I've almost gotten it a million times. All right, I'm going back to my regular way. Boom.
I'm so impressed. Because I would not have noticed if you hadn't shown me the form.
I try not to tell people because their reaction's always like, "What the fuck?"
I need to watch some more tape of that snapping motion.
All right, guys. Really, yeah. Again, I'm like a pitcher that throws.
That's right. Yeah, you're like a sidearm. You're a submarine pitcher.
Yeah. All right, guys. Appreciate it. We will see you Thursday.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.